On my last shift, I counted my crew at the mouth of the tunnel and got the right number. 6 men on the tailgate, plus me. 7, exactly what I'd clocked in. Then I counted again, the way I always count, and there was one more man sitting at the end of the line, boots dark with water, and it was my little brother. And Danny had been dead for 6 years. I need to tell somebody about the 7 strange shifts before I forget the rules, because I've noticed lately that I'm starting to forget them, and a man in my position cannot afford to forget them, so I'm going to do this the right way. Slow. From the beginning. The way the old supervisor did it for me. In the little control room at 3 in the morning, with the fans humming through the wall like something breathing. Let me tell you what the job actually is first, because the ordinary part is what makes the rest so hard to say out loud. I ran the overnight maintenance crew in the Kettle Hollow Tunnel. If you've driven it, you'd never think about it. 1.1 miles of highway bored straight through a mountain, 2 tubes, northbound and southbound, tile walls, that orange sodium light that makes everybody's face look like a corpse. You go through it in 90 seconds with the radio on and you forget it before you're out the other side. We were the ones who kept it alive. Every night, 1 tube at a time, the state closed a bore and my crew went in with the trucks, washing the walls, swapping dead lights, clearing the drainage sumps, checking the big jet fans that pull the exhaust out so nobody suffocates in a traffic jam. Boring work. Wet, loud, cold work. The kind of job you get because the pay's decent and you don't have to talk to anybody, which suited me fine. I'd been there 11 years, supervisor for 8. My name's Rourke. That's what's stitched on the vest. That's what the crew called me, and that's the only name I'll give you for now, because there's another name in this story I've only got the strength to say once. I got my brother the job. That's the thing I have to put down before anything else, because everything I did later comes out of that one decision. Danny was younger than me by 9 years, and he'd never found the bottom rung of anything. Jobs, apartments, the stuff people use to hold on. Our mother made me promise. So I brought him onto my crew, put him in an orange vest, and told myself I could watch him if he was right there beside me in the dark. For a while it worked. And then I found out about the strange shifts, and I found out the hard way, and Danny was the price. The old supervisor before me was a man named Alder, and on my first night as his replacement, he didn't hand me keys or a clipboard. He handed me a binder. It was soft at the corners from decades of hands, water-stained, full of different handwriting, some of it going back further than the tunnel had any business going. On the cover, someone had written in marker, the night book, and under that, smaller, keep the count. Most nights are just nights, Alder told me. He had the tunnel in his voice by then, that flat echo men get when they've spent 30 years underground. But there are 7 kinds of shift where the tunnel isn't the tunnel. You'll learn to feel them coming. When you feel one, you open this book, and you do exactly what it says, and you do not improvise. Men who improvise down here don't clock out. I thought he was an old man doing a bit. I read the book to be polite, and then, over my first 2 years, one by one, I felt every kind of shift he'd written about come true. I'll give them to you the way the book gives them, because the order is the order I learned them in, and the order matters at the end. The first strange shift, the long bore. Some nights the tunnel is longer than 1 mile and a tenth. The distance markers keep climbing past the count. If you pass marker 5S800 and still see wall ahead, do not drive toward the far light. Turn the truck around and go back the way you came. The exit ahead of you is not the exit. The second, the extra man. Some nights the crew is one more than clocked in. Count heads at every break, out loud, by name. If the count comes up 1 over, everyone stops, and every man says his own name and his brother-in-law's name, and you find the one who can't. Never let the extra man ride in your truck. The third, the standing water. When the sumps back up and the water goes flat and still as glass, do not look down into it. Whatever's under a tunnel is under it for a reason. Keep your eyes on the wall. The fourth, the echo. Some nights the radio gives you back your own last words in your own voice, a few seconds late. Do not answer yourself. The moment you reply to your own voice, it stops being your voice. The fifth, the traveling dark. The lights die in sequence, section by section, and a new light appears far ahead to lead you on. Walk toward the light you came from. Never the light ahead. The dark is not empty, it is moving you. The sixth, the doors. Between the two bores, there are cross passages with blue steel doors for emergencies. Some nights you'll hear knocking behind one. Never open a cross passage door that is already standing open. If it's open, something already came through. And the seventh page was blank, not torn out. Blank. Just the words at the top. The seventh strange shift. And then nothing. The rest of the page smooth and empty. Like every supervisor who'd ever held the book had gotten to that line and set down the pen. I asked Alder what the seventh one was. He looked at me a long time. Then he said, "You'll write it yourself. That's the one nobody can tell you. You only get the seventh shift once, and if you're still here after, you write down what it cost you, so the next man knows." He closed the book. Full page. For a while, the strange shifts were almost manageable. That's the trap of this whole thing. You survive a few and you start to believe you've got the measure of it. The echo came first, a couple months in. I keyed my radio to call a lighting check, and 3 seconds later my own voice came back out of the speaker saying the exact words. Calm and flat. The new guys panicked. I remembered the fourth rule and I didn't answer it. Just held the button down and hummed until the double voice faded, and the crew looked at me like I'd done magic. I hadn't. I'd just read the book. The standing water came in the spring when the sumps backed up and the drainage channel filled and went mirror flat under the lights. One of my men, a kid named Pharaoh, leaned over the grate to look, the way anybody would, and I grabbed his collar and hauled him back before he could get his face over it. He asked me what the big deal was. I told him to keep his eyes on the wall. He did. I never told him what I'd seen the one time I made the mistake of looking, years before, and I'm not going to tell you either. Third rule, eyes on the wall. We learned the tunnel had moods, and we learned to read them. And I got cocky, and I let myself believe Danny was safe as long as he was on my crew, under my count. Then came the night the shifts stacked. It was a Tuesday in November, 6 years ago. I remember because it was the last ordinary Tuesday I ever had. We were in the southbound bore. Halfway through the shift, my radio gave me my own voice back. The echo. The fourth shift. I didn't answer it. Standard. But 20 minutes later, the distance markers started climbing wrong. I drove the length of the bore to check a fan, and my odometer rolled past 1 1/10, and the wall just kept going. Marker 5600, 5700, and up ahead, small and warm, the far portal light glowing like the end of it. The first shift and the fourth shift, on the same night. I'd never had two at once. I turned the truck around. First rule, never drive toward the far light, and I felt the fear go through the whole crew like a current, because they felt it too. Now, that wrongness, that sense of being somewhere that was only pretending to be the place you knew. And then the lights began to die behind us, section by section, the traveling dark, the fifth shift. And a new light bloomed far down the bore ahead of us, soft and inviting, exactly where the book said it would be, exactly where I was never ever supposed to walk. 3 strange shifts in one night. I did the only thing a supervisor can do. I called the crew to the trucks and I called the count. I counted 7 men in the dark and the noise and the strobing failure of the lights. 7. Full crew. I remember the number because I said it out loud. 7 were 7. Load up. And I drove us toward the light we'd come from. The right way. The safe way. The 5th rule done perfectly. We came out the north portal into cold, clean air, and I did the count again on solid ground. And there were 6. I'd counted 7 inside. There were 6 outside, and Danny wasn't one of them. I've gone over that night 10,000 times. I know exactly what happened now, though it took me years to make myself understand it. It was the extra man, the second shift. It had been running the whole time underneath the others, quiet, and I never called the name count because I was drowning in the other 3. When I counted heads in the dark, one of the 7 I counted was the tunnels, the extra man standing in Danny's place, wearing the shape of a crew member so that my count came out full and I'd drive away satisfied. I counted the extra man as my brother, and I left my brother in the dark. By the time I understood, the shift had ended. That's the thing nobody outside understands. When a strange shift is over, the tunnel closes to you. it becomes just a tunnel again, a mile and a tenth of ordinary tile, and you can search it end to end with dogs and lights and thermal cameras, and there is nothing there, because the thing that took him isn't in the tunnel you can walk. We searched for 11 days. The official finding was that Daniel Rourke walked off the job site and disappeared, which happens, they said, with guys like him. I let them write that. What was I going to say? That I miscounted a ghost and drove away? I carried it instead. 6 years of carrying it. 6 years of doing the count 3 times. 4 times. Every break, every night. Because I would rather stand in a cold tunnel counting the same 6 men over and over than ever again drive away one short. And the whole time, the 7th page of the night book stayed blank, and I told myself I'd never have to fill it. Then, 3 weeks ago, the signs started stacking again. I felt it the way Alder said I would. The echo first, my own voice coming back soft on the radio. Then the markers climbing wrong. Then, far down the southbound bore, the lights beginning to fail in sequence, and a warm little light blooming at the wrong end. The same 3 shifts, the same November feeling. 6 years to the week. I got the crew to the trucks. 6 men and me. I called the name count this time. I'd never make that mistake again. And every man sang out his name. Pharaoh and Patrisco and the rest. 6 voices. 6 real men, no extra. I got them loaded and I told them to drive north toward the light we'd come from. And Pharaoh looked at me because I'd said, "You drive," not "we drive." And he understood before I did what I was about to do. Because down the far end of the bore, in the traveling dark, past marker 5, 800, where no wall should be, someone was standing in an orange vest, holding a light, working, not walking toward me, not reaching, just working patient, the way you work a long shift when you think your brother's coming back for you any minute. I knew the shape of him the way you know your own hands. "Rourke," Pharaoh said. "Rourke the book. Drive them out," I said. "Do the count at the portal. Out loud. By name. If it comes up wrong, you leave without me and you don't come back in. That's an order." And I walked into the tunnel that isn't the tunnel, toward the one light I was never supposed to walk toward, because it was the only direction that had my brother in it. The dark did what the book says it does. It moved me. I walked what felt like 100 yards and the far light didn't get closer, and the portal behind me didn't get farther, and I understood I was on the tunnel's ground now, in its length, in the part that only opens once. Danny straightened up when I reached him. 6 years. And he looked exactly like the last ordinary Tuesday. Same vest, same nick on his chin from shaving, same way of tilting his head. And when he saw me, his whole face opened up with relief, this pure, terrible relief. And he said the thing he always used to say when I came to get him off a job. "There you are. I knew you'd come back for me." He wiped his hands on his pants. "It's a long shift, man. Feels like I've been out here forever. You ready to go home? And I want you to understand, every cell in my body said yes. Take his hand. Bring him out. Fix it. 6 years of the worst thing I ever did. Undone. Right there. 1 arm's length away. Smiling at me." That's when the 7th page finally wrote itself in my head, and I understood what the blank was, and why no supervisor had ever been able to fill it in advance. The tunnel keeps account. Everything down here is even. It took Danny because I gave it Danny, because I counted wrong and left him, and then spent 6 years refusing to let him be gone, keeping him half here with my own guilt, a debt I would not let close. The tunnel had been holding my brother open like an unfinished sentence because I would not let him finish it, and it would give him back. It would let me walk him right out into the cold air, but the count has to stay even. To take a man out of the dark, you leave a man in it. That's the 7th shift. It doesn't give, it trades. If I took Danny's hand, one of the 6 men driving north right now would simply not be at the portal when Pharaoh called the count. Or I'd stay, and Danny would walk out wearing my life, and my crew would drive home with an extra man they'd never quite be able to place. Either way, I'd be doing the exact thing I'd done 6 years ago, trading somebody's brother for mine, except this time I'd be doing it on purpose. I looked at Danny, at the relief in his face, and I finally said the thing I'd been carrying for 6 years, the thing I never got to say because I drove away before I knew he was gone. "I'm sorry, Danny. I counted wrong. I left you. And it wasn't the tunnel's fault, and it wasn't yours. It was mine. I've got to live with that. But I'm not going to trade one of my guys to buy it back. You wouldn't have wanted that. You never wanted anybody to pay for you. My voice was doing something I couldn't control. The shift's over, Danny. You can put your tools down. You're allowed to go home. You don't have to wait for me anymore. For a second, his face didn't change. Then something in it eased. The same easing I'd seen on the old man's face when he closed the book that first night. A man setting down a weight he'd carried so long he'd forgotten it was optional. He smiled at me, a real one, and he said, "Okay, man, tell Mom I said it's not her fault either." He set his light down on the ground, still burning, and he turned, and he walked into the deep dark, the wrong direction, the direction I could never follow. And for the first time in 6 years, he wasn't working, wasn't half here. He was just gone, the ordinary way, the way I should have let him be. I turned around. The portal was right there, 30 feet behind me, like it had always been. I walked out toward the light I came from. Pharaoh had the crew on the tailgate in the cold, and he was counting them out loud when I came out, his voice shaking. 6. He counted 6 by name, and then he saw me and said 7. And the relief on those men's faces is a thing I'll keep for the rest of my life. We were 7. All real. All named. I made him count twice more, and it was 7 both times, and I let myself breathe, and I felt something come off my chest that had been sitting there for 6 years. I quit the next morning, left the keys, left the trucks, but I took the night book home first, because I'd earned the blank page, and a man who earns it has to fill it in for whoever comes next. I sat at my kitchen table, and I wrote the 7th rule. It took me a long time to find the words. In the end, I wrote the truth, which is the only thing that Paige has ever wanted. The 7th strange shift. The trade. The tunnel will offer you back the one you lost. It will be really them. You can really take them out, but the count stays even, and the price is always another man's brother. The only way to survive the 7th shift is to let your dead stay dead. On purpose, with love, out loud. Say goodbye. Walk toward the light behind you. Do not carry them out. I mailed the book back to the control room in a padded envelope with no return address. And I thought that was the end of it. I really did. I thought I'd finally settled the count. Then last night, cleaning out my truck, I found something under the back seat. An orange vest, soaked through, still cold, folded neat the way Danny folded things. And I've started doing the count again. In my own house. Room by room before I sleep. Because I let my brother go, and the tunnel let him go. And the count came out even at the portal. 7. 3 times. I made Pharaoh check. But a ledger that finally balances still has to balance both ways. I gave the tunnel back the man I'd been holding open all those years. And I keep thinking about how the tunnel never gives. It trades. So every night now I count the people under my roof, out loud by name. And every night the number is right. I just can't stop thinking about how the number was right that first November too, right up until I got outside. And I never checked which one of us the extra man came home as.